Hello, this is Susan Woods of Susan Woods Nonprofit Solutions. Thank you for your time. In this video message, I'm going to answer the question, should you use the Form 1023-EZ to apply for 501c3 status? Again, I'm going to answer the question that so many aspiring nonprofit leaders have, and that is, should you use the Form 1023-EZ to apply for 501c3 status? People normally apply for 501c3 status from the IRS to qualify for tax-deductible investments to enhance their communities. The IRS provides the Form 1023-EZ and the Form 1023 applications to apply for 501c3 status. So you have two options, the Form 1023-EZ or the regular Form 1023. The application people use to apply for 501c3 status depends on a few important factors that we're going to discuss in this video. This video message will explain or will describe both forms, the Form 1023-EZ and the Form 1023 standard version. So let's talk about the Form 1023-EZ first. The Form 1023-EZ is a streamlined version of the Form 1023 that includes 3 pages. Again, the Form 1023-EZ is a streamlined version of the Form 1023, and it includes 3 pages. The Form 1023-EZ application processing fee is $275. So again, the IRS charges $275 to process an application that someone submits using the Form 1023-EZ version. Your nonprofit plans must meet eligibility requirements to use the Form 1023-EZ to apply for 501c3 status from the IRS. So in order to use the short, streamlined version of the Form 1023, your nonprofit plans must meet the eligibility requirements to use that streamlined form or the streamlined application. You must answer no to all questions on the Form 1023-EZ Eligibility Worksheet in order to use the Form 1023-EZ. So there is an eligibility worksheet that you would complete before you complete the Form 1023-EZ. And if you answer yes to any of the 30 questions, then you cannot use the Form 1023-EZ. You would not be eligible. You must answer no to all 30 questions in order to use the Form 1023-EZ application to apply for 501c3 status from the IRS. Unfortunately, too many people skip this step. Too many people skip completing the eligibility worksheet. The IRS does not mandate that you complete it. It recommends completing it, but you can complete the Form 1023-EZ application without completing the eligibility worksheet. However, if you do that, and then down the road, the IRS learns that you were not eligible to complete the Form 1023-EZ, that's your responsibility. You will be held accountable for that because the application that I'm going to show you in just a few moments clearly states that you should complete the eligibility worksheet before completing the Form 1023-EZ. So we're going to look at that more closely, but I wanted to pause just to emphasize the importance of completing this worksheet before before you complete the Form 1023-EZ to make sure that you qualify to complete it. Let's view the Form 1023-EZ eligibility worksheet and the Form 1023-EZ application. I'm going to pause the sharing or the viewing right now so that I can go to those documents. So just one moment, please. And I really appreciate your patience. I'm just going to take a moment to go to those documents so that you can see what I'm referring to. Okay. Just one moment, please. Almost there. Thank you. So this is the Form 1023-EZ eligibility worksheet. And it says here, must be completed prior to completing Form 1023-EZ. If you answer yes to any of the worksheet questions, you are not eligible to apply for tax exemption under Section 501c3 using Form 1023-EZ. Instead, you must apply on Form 1023. If you answer no to all of the worksheet questions, you may apply using Form 1023-EZ. So let's look at the first question. Number 1, do you project that your annual gross receipts will exceed $50,000 in any of the next 3 years? Once again, do you project that your annual gross receipts will exceed $50,000 in any of the next 3 years? Gross receipts are the total amounts the organization received from all sources during its annual accounting period without subtracting, any cost or expenses. You should consider this year and the next 2 years. Now look at that question, please. The very first question is asking you, based on your projections of annual gross receipts, will they exceed $50,000 in 2021, 2022, and 2023? You cannot have more than $50,000 in gross receipts for those years, 2021, 2022, and 2023. Can you say that? Can you answer no to that? Remember, you must answer no to every question in order to be eligible to apply for 501c3 status using the Form 1023-EZ. In my opinion, I don't see how you could answer no to this question. And the reason why is because when you look at your projected expenses, let's not worry about the receipts right now, but what are your projected expenses for 2021, 2022, and 2023? How do you determine that? It's based on the type of nonprofit organization that you want to offer. Because when you are thinking about starting a nonprofit, you must have a budget in mind. The budget is based on what you want to do through your nonprofit. Let's say, for example, you want to do an after-school program for youth. You want to teach them computer skills after school. In order to create a budget for that, you must brainstorm and you must write down everything you need to offer the after-school program to teach youth how to use computers. What all do you need? You need computers. You need a space to teach. You need supplies. You need teachers, right? Now, this is just an after-school program to teach youth how to use computers. When you add up just a few things I just listed, do you believe those things will cost $50,000? Oh, let's not forget food. Sometimes transportation. You see, you cannot only think about the gross receipts, you must think about the expenses. You see, this question just focuses on receipts, but you have to have expenses to offer a program. So if my expenses exceed $50,000, then my gross receipts or my gross revenues must exceed $50,000 as well. So this question to me must have the answer no. I just don't see how you can offer any program that doesn't cost you $50,000 to offer each year, at least that amount. Now, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I'm wrong about yours, then that's fine. Maybe you can project expenses, not receipts. I know the question says receipts, but we're talking about expenses because you have to cover your expenses in order to operate a program, right? So if you have $75,000 in expenses, that exceeds the gross receipts required of $50,000. Therefore, the answer to this question must be no. Think about it. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go through all 30 questions because, in my opinion, I wouldn't need to go any further than one. I would not need to go any further than one to determine that I don't qualify to use the Form 1023-EZ. I'm not eligible to use this form because I know my expenses are going to exceed $50,000. Therefore, my revenue or my gross receipts must exceed $50,000 as well. You cannot have more expenses than you have revenues. So I'm just going to scroll down just a little bit so that you can see some of the other questions in this eligibility requirements worksheet. Now, this worksheet is not 23 pages, of course. I just skipped down to this section of the instructions. This is actually a copy of the instructions to complete the Form 1023-EZ. See, it says Form 1023 instructions here. So like I said, I'm not going to read all of these questions, but I encourage you to do so that you will be able to determine whether or not you are eligible. That's it. It's 30 questions. So that you can determine whether or not you are eligible to use the Form 1023-EZ to complete the application to apply for 501c3 status. So it's 30 questions. It's 30 questions in the eligibility worksheet. And the eligibility worksheet is included in the Form 1023-EZ instructions. Okay, so now I'm going to pause the sharing so I can pull up the actual 1023-EZ application so that you can see it. So thank you so much for your patience. Okay, so now we're looking at the Form 1023-EZ streamlined application for recognition of exemption under 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. Always look for the versions or the revision dates on your applications. The most current revision date for the 1023-EZ is January 2018. Okay. Now, it says, check this box to attest that you have completed the what? The Form 1023-EZ eligibility worksheet in the current instructions, are eligible to apply for exemption using the Form 1023-EZ and have read and understand the requirements to be exempt under Section 501c3. So attest, that means confirm. Check this box to confirm that you have completed. So you would have to check the box. Have your annual gross receipts exceeded $50,000 in any of the past years, and/or do you project that your annual gross receipts will exceed $50,000 in any of the next 3 years? If yes, stop. Do not file Form 1023-EZ and see the instructions. Now, gross receipts include all of the money you project your nonprofit organization to generate from different sources, like from grants, grant money, from fundraising proceeds, from individual donations from people, tax deductible donations from people. If you plan to sell intellectual property like books, that's a form of revenue for your nonprofit. Also, if you plan to charge a membership fee for your clients or tuition fees or whatever it is based on what you plan to offer, those are sources of revenue. Those are sources of your gross receipts. So when you think about gross receipts, think about every method you plan to use to generate revenue, and then add all of that up, and then project whether or not they will exceed $50,000. And if they do, you cannot use this form. The next question is, do you have total assets, the fair market value of which is in excess of $250,000? Do you have assets, trucks, cars, buses, vans, homes, equipment, anything that you can touch that's tangible, an asset that exceeds $250,000? If you do, stop right here. You cannot use the Form 1023-EZ. So as you can see, the IRS has given you 3 opportunities to stop using this application if you're not qualified to use it. That's important and that's big, because if you use a 1023-EZ and you do generate more than $50,000 in gross receipts for the current year and 2 subsequent years, you could be in trouble. And you cannot say you did not know any better, because you have 3 opportunities to stop right here. And in the corner over here in the top right corner, it says, note, if exempt status is approved, this application will be open for public inspection. Anyone can read it. Anybody can see what you chose. So it's crucial to just be honest. Now, when we're looking at the application, okay, it's divided into different parts. Part 1 is identification of applicant, where you would put in all the information that identifies you as the applicant applying for 501c3 status. Then part 2 is the organizational structure. How are you going to be organized? And then we see the word attest again. Check this box to attest that you have the organizing document necessary for the organizational structure indicated above. So if you select a corporation, then you will have to check this box to attest that you have the organizing document necessary to prove that you are going to be a corporation. You don't have to attach it. You just have to attest that you have it. And then you complete all of the other information. And then you see, here's another box to attest. Here's another box to attest. Then here's another box to attest. So the IRS is not asking you to attach the documents to this application. This application is asking you to attest that you have the documents in your possession. Okay? So you are saying, I do have the documents. I have created the documents that you are asking about here. That's what you are testing. You are confirming that you have those documents. You don't have to prove it. You just have to confirm that you do have them. So now, part 3, your specific activities, is when you explain briefly the mission, or the most significant activities of your nonprofit, and you have a limit of 250 characters, which means you don't have a lot of space to be elaborate in your answers. You only have 250 characters. That means a character is a letter, number, symbol, or space. So that doesn't give you much opportunity to really explain anything in detail. You have to be very succinct. Okay, so that's part 3, specific activities. I'm not going to read everything here. You can look for yourself. I do want to point out, here's another box for an attestation that you have to attest that you conducted or will not conduct activities that violate these prohibitions and restrictions. And then part 4, foundation classification. You have to determine what type of foundation you're going to create, or will it be a public charity? So you have to choose what section or which classification is best for your organization. And again, here's another box to attest. Again, they're not asking you to attach documents. They're asking you to attest or confirm that you have completed the documents, and they will be readily available for review if the IRS requests it. Part 5 deals with if you are reinstating a 501c3 nonprofit organization after automatic revocation by the IRS. And if you are, you want to check the appropriate box for the type of revocation, for the type of reinstatement you would like to pursue. And then part 6 is your signature. I declare under the penalty of perjury. I'm getting tongue-tied. Let me read that again. I declare under the penalties of perjury that I am authorized to sign this application on behalf of the above organization, and that I have examined this application, and to the best of my knowledge, it is true, correct, and complete. And you would type your name, type the title, and the date. Okay, so short and sweet, right? 3 pages, just 3 little pages for the Form 1023 EZ. Okay, very appealing, right? 3 pages, $275. You don't have to attach documents. You just have to attest that you have completed the documents and you are on your way. So let me pause the screen, and I'm going to go to the other document, the Form 1023. So just one moment as I go back to the PowerPoint very briefly to talk about the next document, which is the Form 1023, not the EZ, but the regular Form 1023. Okay. I hope that you are learning something in this course or in this video message, because it's very, very important to know the difference between the Form 1023 and the Form 1023 EZ. So now let's talk about the Form 1023 standard version. It's called a standard version. Some people call it the long version. The IRS just calls it the Form 1023 EZ, the Form 1023. I almost said EZ, the Form 1023. Okay. So let's talk about it. The Form 1023 is the standard version of the Form 1023 application for recognition of exemption. That's the full name, the Form 1023 application for recognition of exemption, that includes 18 required pages. However, there are 40 total pages, 18 required pages and 40 total pages. And we'll talk about the difference between the two numbers in a moment. The Form 1023 application processing fee is $600 versus the $275 for the Form 1023 EZ. The Form 1023 application must meet at least one of 8 nonprofit purposes. Now, unlike the Form 1023 EZ that required you to complete an eligibility worksheet, the Form 1023 does not require in eligibility worksheet, it only requires that the nonprofit meets one of 8 purposes. Now, the top 3 purposes are the most popular purposes are charitable purpose, a religious purpose, or an educational purpose. So if your nonprofit vision, if you will, falls into one of those 3 nonprofit purposes, then that means you can apply for 501c3 status using the Form 1023. So again, the 3 top purposes are charitable, religious, educational. And you can go to irs.gov to see or read the remaining 5 purposes. The Form 1023 application includes supplemental responses. So remember, the Form 1023-EZ only required you to attest that you have completed the required documents and that they would be readily available if the IRS requested them for review. The Form 1023, on the other hand, requires that you include supplemental responses, which are also known as attachments, in the application. You will not see the word attest in the Form 1023 because you're required to attach the supplemental responses or attachments or additional documents along with the application. So let's review the Form 1023 and supplemental responses. I'm going to share an example of an application that I completed for a client. So as I pause the screen, and thank you for your patience once again, I'm going to pull up an example of an application that I completed for a client. I've been completing application packets for clients since 2010. And as of the date of this recording, I have completed 162 application packets for clients across the United States. And I have a 100% approval rating, meaning all of the applications I've completed on behalf of my clients have been approved by the IRS. So this is an actual application that I completed for a client. She has received approval from the IRS. Therefore, I can show you her application because right here in the top right corner, it says, if exempt status is approved, this application will be open for public inspection. So I'm not violating anything by showing you her actual application. So this is the Form 1023, the standard version, the application for recognition of exemption under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. It is not the streamlined 1023-EZ version. The revision date is January 2020. So that means the last time this application was revised was January 2020. And the applications are not stored on the irs.gov website anymore. They are now stored on the pay.gov website. So if you were to complete an application, a Form 1023 application on the irs.gov website, you will be completing the wrong version. The version that's on that website was last revised in December 2017. I don't know why the IRS won't simply move the old version off of the irs.gov website, or at least warn people that the new version is on the pay.gov website. But now you know. So looking at this application, you can already see that it has more required information than the 1023-EZ. Part 1 is identification of the applicant. So I've identified the applicant, putting all of her information in. And I also listed the board of directors for her. And then you go on to the next page, the organizational structure. I select the corporation for her. And then I entered the date it was formed and where it was formed and all of that good stuff. I'm not going to, of course, go through this line by line. And then part 3, required provisions in your organizing document. So I had to complete that information. You can already tell that this is much more detailed information than what the 1023 EZ required, right? Your activities. This is a section where I would have completed thorough information about her activities that she's going to provide through her nonprofit. But unfortunately, this section kept creating error messages. So I just included it in her supplemental responses. And we know supplemental responses are those additional documents that are required for the Form 1023 standard version. Part 4 continued. I apologize for the scrolling. Part 4 continued again. So I think I'm making my point that this application is more extensive than the 1023 EZ. So I'm just going to click per page so that you can just see the amount of information that's required. You have your financial data. Remember I talked about the finances, the revenues and expenses. This document is where you would actually spell that out in writing, and you don't do that for on the 1023 EZ. You just attest that you have this document. But it's important that, in my opinion, that the IRS actually reads it. So let me go back up, because 18, I remember I said 18 are the required pages. So here's page 18. I'm gonna go back up to 17 quickly. Thank you for your patience, but I just wanted to point something out to you. This is part 10, where she would sign her name and her title and date. And then on the next page, 18, which is the last required page, you just click on the documents that are included or attached to this application. So this is a Form 1023 application, but then you would click the upload checklist to let the IRS representative know which documents to expect to be included along with this application. Now, let me just go to page 19. Now, the reason that I said pages 1 through 18 are required, because every organization, regardless to what services you plan to provide, are required to complete pages 1 through 18 for the Form 1023. However, the next pages 19 through 40 are only for people who are providing specialized services. These pages include what are called schedules. The schedules are designated to certain types of entities. For example, the Schedule A is for churches. So if you are creating a church, then you will complete the Schedule A, okay? If you're completing a school, college, or university, or creating a school, college, or university, then you will complete Schedule B. Schedule C is for hospitals and medical research organizations. So my point is, if you are doing specialty services like these, then you would choose the schedule that corresponds to the type of specialty services you plan to provide. If you're not providing any specialty services at all, then the only pages you need to complete are pages 1 through 18, okay? That's the point I'm making here. The schedules go all the way up to, I think, H, I believe. H is a very popular schedule because it allows people to provide scholarships. And it's popular because a lot of times people want to provide students with scholarships to go to college and things like that. So that's a popular schedule that I complete for my clients. Yeah, so Schedule H is the last one. Okay, so again, this is Form 1023, the Form 1023 standard version. The Form 1023 application for recognition of exemption includes 40 pages. The first 18 pages are required. The remaining pages are used on an as needed basis, depending upon the type of specialty services you plan to provide. You would just choose the schedule that corresponds with that specialty service. Now I'm going to go now over to I'm going to pause my screen so I can move over to the supplemental responses so you can take a look at what that entails. Okay, the supplemental responses are those additional documents that you have to attach to a Form 1023 standard. So the first specialty document is the first supplemental response, which is a document that you attach to the Form 1023, is the document that you filed with the Secretary of State's office in which you plan to operate your nonprofit. Whenever you operate a nonprofit organization, you have to have approval from the Secretary of State's office in the state in which you plan to operate. So in this case, the state of South Carolina has approved the community storehouse to operate a nonprofit in the state effective 8/29/2020. You have to include this in your application for the Form 1023 to show the IRS that you have been approved to operate on the state level. You have to operate on the state level first or have approval before the IRS will give you 501c3 status. So that's the first supplemental response. The second supplemental response are the bylaws or the bylaws document. And this document is required to show that you have bylaws that you plan to use to govern your nonprofit organization. So that's a second supplemental response. Okay, all of these pages. The next supplemental response is your activities document. And this is the document that you will use to lay out exactly what you've done in the past, present, and planned. What are your past activities? What are your present activities? And what are your planned activities for this nonprofit organization? Okay, so you will include it in the application so that the IRS representative can read it and can approve every line. And that's the purpose of this. That's the purpose of this. I'm sorry, did it too big. That's the purpose of, I believe, including these attachments, because you want the IRS to say, okay, the representative, the exemption specialist assigned to process your application, you want them to say, okay, they've done the homework. They've taken the time to actually create these documents, these supplemental responses, and they are required to read it. If you submit it, they're required to read it. And this document is your financial data. Now, this is the same document that we looked at in the Form 1023. However, I added an additional column called a budget narrative to explain different parts of the financial data that may not be easily understood. Now, you don't have that column in Form 1023, the application. So that's why I like to attach it to the application itself so the IRS representative can say, oh, okay, now I understand why they are asking for $41,000 for occupancy of rent and utilities, for example. You can spell things out better for them so that they can have a good understanding of where the money will go that you're projecting for your nonprofit. And then another document, supplemental response document, is the fundraising activities document. And this is the document that lets them know how you plan to generate revenue. And then you have the conflict of interest policy document. That's a supplemental response. You have to have that to show that you are going to operate a nonprofit organization to benefit the community and not for yourself. And there are several pages to this conflict of interest policy document. See, several pages. So those are the supplemental responses. So there are 25 pages, as you can see here, 25 pages of supplemental responses alone, right? So I'm going to go back up to the PowerPoint to close out the presentation and to close out the video so that we can say, okay, why or should, rather, to go back to the original question, should you complete the Form 1023 EZ or not? So let me pause to go back to the PowerPoint, and then we're going to wrap up this video message. I thank you so much for your patience with me going from screen to screen and pausing. So we're back. Which Form 1023 should you complete to apply for 501c3 status from the IRS? Which Form 1023 should you complete to apply for 501c3 status from the IRS? Should you complete the Form 1023 EZ streamlined version, or should you complete the Form 1023 standard version? What do you think? If you want to talk about the two options more, I invite you to reserve a phone consultation with me. Just go to my website at www.trustsusanwoods.com and click on the reserve consultation link if you want to talk about the differences. But I can tell you right now, I do not complete the Form 1023 EZ for my clients. I've never done it, and I don't ever plan to do it. The reason being, I want to complete the Form 1023 long version so that I can check all the boxes, if you will. I also want to complete it because it requires supplemental responses, those attached documents. By completing those attached documents, the client is required to really think through what they want to do through their nonprofit organization. The way I work is when I talk to a client through a consultation, I write notes about what they want to do. And if they hire me to complete their paperwork, I complete drafts of all of the documents, all of the supplemental responses for them. My clients never have to type one word. I complete the first drafts of those documents and send them to my clients through email to get their feedback. And we go back and forth over a 20-day business day period, tweaking the documents until they read exactly how my clients want them to read. This process requires my clients to really think about what they want to do, to lay it out very clearly for themselves and for the IRS. And then when we submit the application to the IRS, the Form 1023 and the supplemental responses, the exemption specialist is required to read every single line of the application and the supplemental responses. And when they approve the document, when they approve the application packet, they are approving everything you said you were going to do. Everything. So you can feel confident that you've created a very thorough application packet that includes all of the details of the things you want to do, and the IRS approved it. In addition, you can use your application packet as your procedures guide to guide you through implementing your services. After you get your determination letter from the IRS stating that you've been approved. That's the benefit of doing the long version. Those are the benefits of doing the long Form 1023 application for recognition of exemption. I know it's longer. The application requires 18 pages to be completed, plus the supplemental responses, which are 7 documents, plus the $600 fee. Yes, I get it. It's much easier to say, okay, let me do 3 pages, attest to all these things, pay $275 and be done with it. but you don't have anything in your hand. Did you really create those documents? If you did, okay, good. Or are you just attesting to the fact that you completed them just so that you can get your status? Some people say, well, Susan, I just want to get my status and move on. I don't have time for all of this. You will be sorry that you didn't get your documents approved by the IRS, because now you and the IRS, if you use the Form 1023-EZ, are basing your operations on the assumptions that you both understand each other. You're basing it on the assumption that the IRS representative believes that you have created the documents correctly. Wouldn't you rather know you've created them correctly by getting an approval on the documents? So my vote is for the Form 1023 standard, the long version. It takes more time, yes. It takes more money, yes, but it prepares you to be successful much better than the Form 1023-EZ ever will. Thank you so much for your time. I know this was a long video. I've been planning to do this video for months, so I finally got it done, and I thank you for your time and your patience, and I wish you a very, very good day. And once again, if you want to talk about it more, please feel free to schedule a phone consultation with me. I will be happy to help you. Thank you.